This is the new 992 generation GT3 RS. You don't have to look at it very hard to determine that this is the most extreme road-legal track day vehicle that Porsche has built since 23 examples of the 911 GT1 Strassen version hit the road a quarter century ago. There are lots of things you need to know about the GT3 RS, technical, nerdy things, and I will do my best to explain them in a way that doesn't totally suck. But the most important thing I can tell you about this car, the one single metric that will matter to anyone lucky enough to essentially be gifted an allocation to get one, is 50%. 50% isn't the markup over MSRP, though that may as well be true for some buyers. No, 50% is the increased spring rate versus the regular GT3, a car I've already dismissed from my personal dream garage because it is so abusive on the street, opting instead for the much more friendly 718 Spyder. But that's just me. You might have a membership somewhere like this, the Thermal Club outside of Palm Springs, a private racetrack country club where I'll be having a go today. They have an espresso machine in the paddock. They have icy cold towels for your neck after a hot stint. They have a pit crew that will check your tire pressures before and after a session, on-site instruction, a race shop, and not to mention a first-rate restaurant and bar. Out here, it's always sunny. The tarmac is smooth as glass, and your home garage is 100 meters from pit out. Neither public roads nor trailers required. If this describes you, congratulations, you've beaten the game of gearhead life. Now, here's your allocation, and enjoy whatever paint-to-sample livery you choose. Just don't look up what it would cost you to buy a Radical SR8 or a second-hand LMP prototype or a NASCAR and what those lap times would look like compared to the RS. I mean, after all, if you live at a track or have a home here, what's the point of a car with a license plate anyway? In fact, this car makes the most sense for a driver who is on the road 90% of the time and the track 10% of the time. The driver who doesn't have a home at a racetrack country club, but still wants to spend time at one. Except, it has no trunk. Porsche put cooling where a trunk was. Now, you may love the brag that it can do a 6-minute and 49 Nurburgring lap time, which is 8 seconds faster than the 918 Spyder with just over half the power. But what are you willing to give up for that brag? Because when you go on a road trip, your suitcases are now riding shotgun. There are radiators and fans up here, and there's really not much way to get things behind the seats. Now, I'm not trying to crap on the race car for doing race car things, but let's be honest, a lot of people use these as weekend canyon cars. Maybe they do a handful of track days a year. And it's not like regular street-oriented Porsches aren't up to track work. In fact, something like a Turbo S or even a GTS is more car than even an above-average driver can really take advantage of. So you have to wonder, is the trade-off worth it?
Hey everyone, we're going to interrupt for NFTs. And no, I'm not talking about non-fungible tokens. This has nothing to do with the blockchain. I promise. Are you listening, SEC? I promise. No, we're talking about non-functional transportation, a joke that came out on our podcast and that we turned into a t-shirt featuring some of the coolest and most popular project cars out there. Well, now we're back. Got a lot of requests from the Subaru and Mitsubishi community and the haters of those communities. That's right. One shirt is a Subaru WRX STI, known for head gasket issues. The other one is a Mitsubishi Lancer Evo. Two of the coolest sedans ever made, and unfortunately, they're not without their problems. So if you have one of these cars, whether it's working or not, or your spouse has one of these cars and it's not working, or even better, you have a friend with one of these projects sitting in their driveway and you want to throw some shade at them, grab one of our NFT shirts. They are at blipshift.com/TST. But you have to act soon because this sale is over at this date. Because I forget the date.
My concern is that this thing, like the GT3 and the GT3 RS before that, would just beat me up on the street. But the fact is, this is a track-only event, so I won't find that out today. Porsche will not let us. Putting that aside, let's for a moment revel in the extent to which Porsche's GT program has gone to find speed in the 992, which can be broken down into 4 categories: engine, chassis, weight, and aero. There are actually more changes to the engine than you might think. It has revised camshafts, which move the power band even further up the tack compared to the GT3, resulting in a bit more horsepower and a bit less torque. Fact is, you don't really notice that. They also have improved the flow of the oil cooler by 20%, and interestingly, they've revised the cylinder heads to optimize them for high G loading, meaning they don't want oil to get trapped in little pockets of the cylinder heads in high G corners. It's something the car probably didn't need, given that the Cup car motor would work just fine, but they thought, what the hell? Then there's that radiator. Where once were 3 small exchangers spread out across the nose, this car only has one big one right in the middle where the frunk used to be. The air flows through it and out the bonnet lid, helping produce not only better cooling, but more front downforce. The entire package is optimized for trouble-free hot track days. Such as right here. This track is literally called thermal, and it may be a beautiful 65 degrees today in February, but come August, this place is pushing like $115. This isn't really a car for amateurs, even very rich ones. It's designed for the experienced track driver, and as such, has a very advanced, fully adjustable chassis. For the first time in a GT car, the steering wheel is covered in knobs that do things. You can adjust the compression and rebound on the shocks individually. You can adjust how the differential locks and unlocks. You can dial in the traction and stability control separately from each other. This worries me for 2 reasons. I recall the great Colin Chapman as saying, if you make the suspension adjustable, they will adjust it wrong. And I believe that. I should not be trusted to make these adjustments. But Andy Preuninger, godfather of the GT car program, insists that there is no way to make this car handle dangerously through the settings. It's simply fine-tuning for driver preference. In fact, he says there is a combination of settings you can use that will make the GT3 RS actually ride softer than the standard GT3, and that's the setting he uses to drive to the Nurburgring. That's fair enough. An OEM can't make it so an owner can turn their car into a death trap using factory modes, but that's not really what bothers me about all this. The owners are going to have the most annoying series of conversations ever, though. Oh, you set your differential to 4 and your rebound to 2 and your compression to 1. Well, I set my compression to 3 and my differential to 1 because I need more understeer on the entry. It's going to be even more annoying than the paint to sample and contrast stitching conversations they're having right now. Then there's the weight, or lack thereof. RS products must be as light as possible, and in order to achieve that, Porsche has made many bits out of carbon fiber, such as the doors, roof, bonnet, wing supports, seats, and fenders. The forged wheels are lighter, the glass is lighter, and the exhaust system is lighter. They've removed 8th gear from the PDK transmission, same as the GT3, which saves 44 pounds. And all this extra work provides a surprising result. The GT3 RS weighs 3,190 pounds, which is only 33 pounds more than the regular GT3. It's not lighter? How's that work? Well, in order to make this thing do what it does, they have to add more than subtract weight. It's got the turbo body. Wider, it means heavier. The wing isn't fixed. It's got hydraulic motors and actuators. That's heavier, right? It's got a bunch of different hardware in it that adds weight, and so they have to put that stuff in and then do all the carbon fiber, the lightweight glass, and all their other lightweighting efforts in order to make it back down to where it needs to be. In fact, this one has the Weissach pack, which features carbon fiber sway bars, among other bits, magnesium wheels, exposed carbon hood, and more. But the most trick part of the GT3 RS is probably the aerodynamic package. This looks less like a regular 911 than any RS car before it. It's not just a wing and a front splitter. There is a lot going on here. It's got active aero front and rear that responds to a potentially infinite combination of inputs. The giant rear wing can adjust up to 34 degrees and act as an air brake, or conversely, for minimal drag in DRS mode. And those very dangerous looking fins on the roof deflect hot radiator waste air away from the deck lid mounted intakes, cooling the charge and adding power. Here we are. We've got a racetrack, it's a beautiful day, we've got a factory driver to chase, and so let's get at it. I don't really know what any of the settings do, so I had my professional assistant here, Jörg Bergmeister, help me choose my settings this morning. It goes to 9, it goes to 9. Feels so stable. It's got a bunch of power, but it's not scary power. Right here, come off the brakes, super neutral, little tiny bit of push on the exit, but that's okay. This track is like glass smooth, so there really isn't a better place to be driving this thing. Through this section here is where you get the downforce, because it's very fast, 100-mile-an-hour sweepers, a little bit of brake, down a gear. Here's the sketchiest part of the track, over blind crest left. Could really send it into the dirt there. It's got a bit of a thicker ceramic rotor for heat distribution and a bit of a bigger piston than the regular GT3. Oh, now Jörg is really going. Now we're going, baby. Oh, the grip. And in the Weissach pack, we've got that carbon fiber sway bar, carbon fiber shear plate, carbon suspension components, and behind me a carbon fiber roll cage. Oh yes! Steering is razor sharp, unique programming for the rear steer, working in conjunction with that downforce. Lot to like, folks, lot to like. 104 mile an hour through that sweeper, picking up the pace just a little bit. Probably about 700 pounds of downforce at 100 miles an hour. And now I'll get into the air brake with the heavy braking here. Really starting to feel very comfortable. GT3 RS has it beat for sound. It's actually on the quieter side, but oh, the braking G's. Don't have a big lunch before a session in this car. It will come back to haunt you, literally. The turn in is really, really sharp. Tons of grip at the mid-corner. Whoa! Fantastic! I'm making Jörg earn his paycheck a little bit in this session. Just a little. He's got to push that GT3 in front of me. He tried to make me feel good, like I was going to make him work hard. I don't think he's working that hard, but he is getting oversteer. The sound of the shift paddle is so satisfying. Always gives you the gear. Even if you've got 1 RPM to spare before redline, it always gives you the gear. It's that little stuff that Porsche does that really makes the difference. If you have room for the gear, you get the gear. Yes. What a treat to chase Jörg Bergmeister around a track. Dude is no slouch. I love the way it behaves on trail braking, corner entry. I love the way it behaves when you start to take your foot off the brake, especially right here in the hairpins. And then it maintains a beautiful balance on the exit. When the tires were very cold first lap, it did have some push there, but that is completely gone after a couple of sessions on these tires. But it's about that grip, it's about those brakes, and the aero balance at the high speed stuff. So poised. And it's so comfortable. So many track day cars are just uncomfortable with a helmet on. I'm sitting so low in the car. I have such good visibility. I have so much room. You know, for a big dude, it's a very roomy car to be on a racetrack with. I don't feel the least bit cramped. I feel like I can move my arms, my feet, and my head where they need to go. And that's so important. Oh, starting to get a little much heat in the tires. Some ABS engagement in the braking there, moving around. We're in the dynamic traction setting, which does let the car move a little bit. This car is predictable. And that's what you really want on a racetrack. You want it to do the thing you tell it to do and respond the way you expect it to respond. That is fantastic. After 30 minutes of lapping the new GT3 RS, I've changed my mind a bit about its place in the world. And Thermal Club management says there are over 70 RSs living on the property full-time, so the members here must like them as well. There is something to be said for familiarity, for comfort, and for turning the key and just going. Last year, I drove the 992 GT3 Cup, the pure racing version of this very car, and it was intimidating. From the slick tires to the racing dashboard, the funky buttons and the trackside support, it's a lot to take in. Prototype race cars, even if they are faster and less money than the RS, even more so. The fact that this GT3 RS can be used so effectively on track, but with more forgiving street-based tires, the fact that to sit in it and operate it feels mostly like a familiar 911 experience, and the fact that you can also take it out on the road for a drive into town for dinner if you like, make it an incredibly desirable proposition for anything south of a pro driver fighting for a checkered flag. I'm glad I don't want one for myself. It's too big, too stiff, and not torquey enough to be a great road car. But I see what Porsche is going for here, and in that context, it's just about right. And remember, always fight your tickets. Use code TST10 on the Off the Record app available in the Android and iOS store, or go to offtherecord.com/TST.